That was Ric Flair
that
getting
was
a little,
like a-
Get a
little
little,
tickle.
get a little tickle.
That was
Yeah.
like the Joker making out with Ric Flair.
I like that.
Everybody losing their minds.
I don't know. Okay.
Hey, you got a good Joker.
Yeah, do it.
No.
Do it.
No, I'm not doing that. You know I don't do stuff like that on
Yeah,
request.
you do.
No, I don't.
Yeah. It's the last episode. No one's
No.
ever going to ask you to do it
It's
again.
my request.
No.
Do you do the
Casey.
What does he
He
say?
just goes, everyone's losing their minds. However, he doesn't.
I wish Casey would do that. On our
Casey
last
does a
episode.
good.
I'm not going to do it.
He does a good snatch. I've had you for it. How do you fight for free?
Maybe I should start a career in just doing impressions. of
Maybe
other
because
people.
this thing is done with.
Yeah.
Darren Eubanks says, weep emoji, weep emoji, weep emoji. Zach Windsor says, hey dudes, love you guys.
Hey, Zach
So,
Spencer.
so if you're listening to this episode, this is the last Salty Dogs
This is the last ride.
episode. And so we've got some people live right now. If you're listening after the fact, you can always go back and watch the replay, but it's not the same as being here right now.
Yeah.
I guess you guys should have took that in when you had the chance, but
But you didn't, suckers.
Andrew.
So the interesting thing is that if you follow like our Facebook page or my personal page, you've seen us kind of share this out. We just shared this out 2 days ago. You may be, when this hits your ear holes, a week from now, really caught off guard.
A
But
nice punch to the ear hole.
yeah, right. Nice punch to
Take
the
a-
urethra.
Take a man right out.
But yeah, this is
The
it.
urethra is not in the ear.
Yeah, I know where the urethra is.
Urethra?
Urethra?
It's like the urethra.
Urethra
of the ear.
Franklin?
It's the urethra.
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 Aren't you guys glad we're putting this thing down? All we do is make
I'm
dick
not.
jokes and
I'm not. It's hitting me today.
penis.
I was good all day today. Are you just gonna say whatever you want to say on the last
That's
episode?
it. I'm just letting it go. I've been holding it in
Oh man,
for 5 seasons. Penis.
5 seasons. Well, I wasn't here all those seasons.
Oh my god.
You guys
weren't.
did. You guys rolled 2
So
seasons.
so tell your story. I interrupted it with phallic jokes.
I don't even remember what I was saying. I was just basically saying that. Yeah, I'm feeling it, man. I'm a little sad. I pulled in the parking lot and I'm bummed.
I'm ready, bro. I'm not.
Well, I know it's time. I'm not saying it's not ready, but it's like a morning for me a little bit.
Yeah. I'll probably miss it a little bit too.
I mean,
I'll miss it.
had you not have to be like, if you weren't the guy that had to run and set everything up and like, do all the cameras and all that stuff, you probably wouldn't feel as I don't know.
No, I don't think that has anything to do with it, man.
Yeah. What does it have to do with it? Why
Oh my
are you
gosh.
done?
I have to apologize to Darren's children. So, by the way, not all 39-year-old men are like this. There are some mature individuals out there. I just happen to not be one of
He's
them.
definitely not one of them.
And so I sincerely apologize. So
Yeah, reel it
Darren-
in.
yeah.
You pervert.
I've just reeled it in.
Goodness.
So
anyways,
you got reeled in.
This
son.
is the last episode. I figured, number one, we could tell people why it's the last episode. Maybe talk about
Hope you're ready for the last episode.
what's next, and then maybe even some of your favorite things. Or you
did
can
you come
go.
with an agenda?
Yeah, I kind of did. I've thought about this. I know you haven't. I know you don't care, but I do.
Jason doesn't
care.
care about anything but himself. So
The big thing, I think it would be really interesting to have the conversation about how you've changed during the start of the season to now.
like the start of the show.
Yeah, the
till
start of
now?
the show. So yeah, just like some highlight reels, like some
good
big
God.
markers.
Oh my gosh, she's gonna tell like we got live stories for that. First of all,
Drop a nuclear bomb.
Well, I kind of thought about this too, and I think that's a good question to answer. But I mean, Casey and I in a room at a table with a couple microphones, we're
A
like,
Yeti mic,
Hey.
a blue Yeti mic.
here we are. No, we had Sennheiser E835s
Oh, you
back
did?
then. Yeah, I'd learned
Okay.
my lesson right before we pulled the trigger. But we're like, here it is. Here we go. We're doing this thing.
Yeah.
And then
5 years
we
later.
we did we started in 2017, so four years, but 5 seasons.
Still a
And
long time.
it's a long time.
What year?
2017.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
What the hell? What was going on in 2017?
I don't even know.
I don't remember.
2017, I was about to plant a church with Zach Windsor.
Okay.
2017, what were you doing ministry wise? Were you guys still operating and functioning like a?
Yeah.
We were-
yeah.
We were here at the sword.
We were 2017 was that Journey the Way.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Yeah, I don't think
I
you
don't know.
were.
Wait. Did we make the transition? Because we started here, didn't we?
No, we didn't.
You guys
start
were
here.
recording in the chapel, weren't you? No, you were in some other room, and then the first time I guest appearance in like season 2,
So-
you guys were meeting in the chapel here at the church.
So here's what I'd like you to do, Casey. You named the podcast. Why don't you revisit that?
Why I named it that?
Yeah,
Mm,
because we had a vision.
Yep.
Yeah, I just the term "salty dogs" was given to like veterans, like people that have been through it. You know what I mean, or just are ahead in certain things. You know what
Yeah.
I mean, like when you're in the military, or
Got
you're
some
in
salt.
Naval, whatever. You know what I mean? Just call them salty dogs. That's
Seasoned.
what they are.
Hey, if you're on the
and so-
live, let us know if you can hear Casey.
and it was so I just we started it with the premise of like bringing in people to just get different perspectives and different viewpoints, because everybody has different perspectives and different viewpoints, and for the most part it worked out pretty well, I thought, man.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
we interviewed damn near every
Every pastor
pastor ministry friend that we
this
know.
side of
Not-
the Mississippi.
Not all of them. And I also have to apologize because there were people that I invited on the show and I just never got to get them on.
Yeah.
And so that kind of sucks, but
Yeah. So when you guys did that, that was like first 2 seasons, would you guys say? How do you think the podcast was? People thought of the podcast, other pastors in the area, other people in
joke.
ministry.
I'm sure.
no, actually,
I think it was pretty well received.
it was pretty
Yeah.
well received. I mean, we were having conversations around just typical scenarios. We weren't
a lot of.
like,
I
we had
remember a lot of
we had-
topics
we
that
had-
were just like,
churchy.
yeah, well, not a
I'm-
little taboo, but not too taboo.
Not really taboo. I
mean-
mean, we ask questions like, "What's the purpose of the church?" and myths of ministry. I mean, I can't remember.
Theological stuff.
Yeah,
you
just
know?
theological talk, and so I mean, that's all it was. We were really. So the reason it started was Casey and I. We used to always have conversations in the car in the morning. I'd go drop them off at work, and we would get heated, bro. Like we'd be going back and forth, and well, the Bible says this and this and that, whatever, in church today, and blah blah blah, and we're going off, and we would do that for about 10 minutes, and then it's like time to go. And so we'd get all freaking worked up over theological conversation, and
Yeah.
then it's like, all right, have a good day, bro. Like we'd get each other
So
steaming.
do you
and
think? So do you think that it was kind of started? There was a little bit of a chip on y'all's shoulders. Would you
Oh,
say?
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was what centered around like frustrations with the church and stuff like that. Would you say that?
Emily, is that your girl?
It's a lady friend, yeah.
Oh, come on. What were you asking?
Just kidding.
I was
man.
basically just asking. Number one, did you guys have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder?
Yeah.
When you started out, and then number two, is that chip there from like just frustrations with the church?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, Casey and I talked about this way back in season 1. It's like there's discrepancy between our experience and our walk in Christianity and our relationship with Jesus, and
Yeah.
what was being preached and taught, and then also what we were reading in Scripture. So when you
Okay.
open the Bible, you're like, you see it one way, but then you're experiencing it a different way outside of that, and you're like, why doesn't this match up?
yeah. So was there always a desire for change, like within the church with the podcast? Like, man, we're hoping that like
A change in the church, but change in us, really. Like Casey and I, how many times have we gone off of this whole idea of like, how does one change? How
Yeah.
do you repent? How do you do these things?
Yeah.
How do I taste and see
You know
if the
what-
Lord is good? How?
Yeah,
how?
and you know what's strange, man, is I've got more questions now than I did at the beginning.
Oh,
man.
for sure.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
in my life got shook, and it's like, I don't know. I've got way more questions now,
Yeah, as I was thinking about that today too, how I'm different kind of from when I jumped on in season 3. That was one of the things that I literally, Casey, I had that same thought, like, man, I got more questions now than I have answers. And that's kind of where I'm at, and I don't know that I'm ever going to have the answers, not on this side of heaven, at least all the answers to maybe some of the specific things that I have. So I definitely agree with you. Like I'm in that same space.
Yeah.
You want me to just answer them all for you right now? That's what we did on the podcast.
That'd be
anyway.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll just answer all of life's
No,
questions
I,
today.
I was thinking about that too, and just the one phrase that I have, just looking back from season 1. I don't even think we hit 100 episodes. We hit 100 podcast episodes, but some were bonuses, some were promos and
Dude,
those
that
different
still
kinds of
counts
things.
to me. That counts.
So we did 5 seasons, almost 100 episodes, and over the course of 4 years. And I think the phrase that came to me was the more you think you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
Like I just, there had been times where I felt like I've always had an explanation for something, but then there's been times where I'm like, I don't know. And we're left scratching our head. Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, these are questions and we're wrestling and I don't know. I can't say for sure, 100% for sure, but I think that's okay. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned in all of this is that, like, I don't think you're going to know 100% the answer to every freaking question that exists concerning Christianity and theology.
There's just no way.
Right.
There's a million different answers. There's 3,200 different sects of Christianity. Like,
Right.
who the frick is right? We've talked about this before. And so it all just boils down to, like, where am I with Christ? And so we had a really good episode with Jared Leddington, this last episode that we did with him. I don't know what to name it. I named it like discipleship and laughing at TikTok or whatever. But
Right.
we ended up having a really good conversation just about, I don't know, just this idea of like, I don't even know. What the heck did we talk about? Well,
There's
I
lots
guess
of
I'm not
stuff.
supposed to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Were you going to continue with the thought that you had?
I can't remember what it was.
Do you have any regrets with the podcast? Anything that you regret?
Casey?
I don't think so. I think it's really strange for me, man, because from the beginning of the podcast until now, like, my life has been devastated by just a bunch of circumstances. You know what I mean? And it's really strange, to kind of look back on it as where I was when we started and like where I'm at now. But I don't think I have any regrets. I think, I'd been pretty candid, about
For sure.
about a lot of things, and that was, I think, ultimately like one of my goals is that I wanted to be very, transparent with struggles, you know what I mean, as far as I could. I mean, even though like in my personal life that was, kind of a struggle with me.
It's hard to like put everything out there.
Yeah.
Like
well, I mean, even in my interpersonal relationships, you know what I mean? Like, it was really strange. I could talk about things on here, but like really closed down personally. But
That's interesting.
yeah. So I wanted to be real about like where I've come from until now, and it's just really strange. I'm always like thinking in my mind, well, not always, but whenever I think about the podcast, I'm like, man, what about these people who have been here from start to finish now? Like, what do they think about that? Because it's like you literally watched a man's life destroyed right in front of your eyes. You know what I mean? And you see the beginning product, like an arrogant prick. You know what I mean? Like,
Is that what you would call yourself?
I would have said that, I thought I had some stuff figured out, man. You know what I mean? And then it comes to this place, you know, so beginning till now, man, like God's humbled me, you know what I mean? Like in a really harsh way, it would seem, you know what I mean? So I think, as far as regrets is concerned, no, but I always wonder what people think about. Literally, you're watching the timeline of, listening all the way through a man who was struggling. You know what I mean? And
that's the cool thing about a podcast is you get to see people grow and evolve. Hopefully, as the podcast goes on, I think I'm a pretty big fan of the Bad Christian podcast, and it's a lot different now than it was when it first started. And you get to see, then at that point when it started, a look at 3 guys who, if they look back at themselves, 400 plus episodes in, they are not the same people that they were.
Yeah.
And there's something cool to be said about that being like made available and preserved. Maybe you've preserved a version of yourself that was there. It would be so interesting for me to know, like, man, my son or my daughter or my grandkids one day could go and listen to some of my thoughts, the stupid, inappropriate jokes that we've made, just all of these things. And
which
I
have
don't
gotten
know, I think
increasingly
that's cool.
worse over time. We've gotten a lot more relaxed on the podcast. Which is funny. But I mean, as far as answering that question, like, do I have any regrets? I mean, I'm not sitting here like, oh, really wish I would have or wouldn't have. Like, I don't have any regrets. And I do think it's pretty cool. Like, if people were to find the podcast and actually listen through, and it also kind of makes me wonder, like, at what point would people drop
off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they actually tried to listen through. But,
Well,
if you listen through and just over time, you've seen how things have evolved. And actually what I think would happen, like I know that looking back from 2017 to 2021, like I'm so much more closer to the Father now. And I have a much more solid understanding of who I am in him and his forgiveness and what his work on the cross accomplished and how it made me a son and forgiven, all this stuff. Like I have a lot more identity and understanding with the Lord, but I think people would listen through and actually think that I'm worse off now than I was when they first started listening to me.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting to consider?
No,
I know that I'm better, and I think because of my theology or doctrine, whatever, people would think I'm worse.
Gosh, I'm trying to. I was thinking about how much I really want to just let stuff out today on the drive in. But man, I would agree. We shot a wedding here at the Source. I say we, me, and I had a conversation with a mutual person that we know, and he actually made a statement to me, and this is not the first time that I've heard this, but he said, Chris, there's a church, pretty big church in town that I used to be a part of, and now I'll still run into some of those people, and they say, hey, well, where are you at?
They hold prayer services for your soul.
No, but he basically said, oh, well, I'm over at the Source, Wichita, Jason Villanueva. Oh, Chris Cerna's related to him. He used to come here, and then he said that some of them would say, man, I'm really worried about that guy. Like I'm really concerned about him and kind of where he's at. And so it's so interesting. All of these, quote unquote people that are concerned about my soul, where I'm at, my beliefs, all of this stuff. And Jason, I would say the same thing. I would say I've never felt closer to God. Maybe it doesn't look the way that it used to look in a way that's like a cookie cutter kind of very structured formula. It's very different. There's a lot of freedom that comes with where I'm at, and not freedom in the sense of like I get to do whatever I want. I'm talking like mental freedom that can be felt in the body, to where there's certain things that used to weigh me down, certain mental gymnastics and hula hoops that I'd have to go through that I just don't find myself in anymore. I've even had some people say like, hey, did you know that there was a pastor here in town that used you in his sermon as like a sermon thing? And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Let me go check this out. And so it's just, it's bullshit.
You're a sermon example now.
I am a sermon example, but you know what?
You're
To be fair, I mean, how many times have I can't speak for Casey. I know I can speak for you and I, where we've discussed things on the podcast with certain churches in mind,
Oh, sure.
So,
yeah, for sure.
It is what it is, but I've always thought it's really interesting to know that there are people that are worried about where I'm at in my faith.
So I don't know that this is a regret, but it's absolutely a concern. And I know that this was something that we were going to talk about at one point and decided not to, but just my primary concern with the podcast is that there are people out there who personally would feel attacked or whatever by us, and that we may not have had to been able to have a conversation, or you know what I'm saying? Like that's a concern. Like maybe you wrote me off, or maybe I've written you off with my views and that kind of stuff. But again, preserving the evolution of our journey in the faith, and whether we're better off or not better off at the end of it. Like, I think there are a lot of people who won't get on the mic and talk about things. And I've heard this before. I've actually read this, I think, in a Christian podcaster group on Facebook a while back. And there was a pastor that was saying, I don't know why he was in a podcast, maybe it was somewhere else, but he said, I would never start a podcast because I'm afraid of what might come out of my mouth, and I don't want that to live on after I say it, and me had been wrong about what I said at that time.
Interesting.
And it's just like, so you're afraid to have a conversation because you're afraid that you might say something wrong?
You're afraid to not be right?
Or even more than that.
People are afraid to not be right.
For it to be like preserved.
Yeah.
You're not being right about something.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had that concern.
I've never been afraid of that, because I'm telling you right now, man, I've been wrong about a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah,
still am, And but what you're saying, like preserving that, it's going to be interesting, you know,
even to go
10
even to go
10
back.
years down the road and see, you know, and just kind of listen and
Yeah.
kind of see how things have developed from there. And like, just even in my life, where that's gonna be at, and I'm gonna look back at these times and be like, damn, man, like you know,
Or you might look back and it's funny, you know, past you might have said something that's going to encourage future you.
it's true, and
know,
you know,
like,
that
that's
happen?
That's
and that's
wild.
happened. That's happened a lot to me.
had
Like with when I've wrote songs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I've wrote songs or lyrics from like years ago, and like, but that were like directly applicable to now. That weren't applicable then. I was just saying stuff, but I can think back to that, and I'm like, dang, dude, like that's
Man, past
that's-
Casey
that's-
had some-
Past Casey used to
Past
see.
you.
Past
Dropping
Casey
some
was the man.
knowledge.
This
So-
Casey now, dude, is
So
not the man.
Let me
He's,
talk
you
about
know,
one of my favorite times on the podcast, and it was this season when Casey played his song
Yeah, that was good.
like live on the air, and we got to capture that. We had people on Facebook. We had people on Facebook say, "Hey, where can I find more of
Yeah,
his
man.
music?" Like they were ready to listen to you.
Yeah,
They were
man.
like, "Where can I listen to more?" And I was like, "More of the podcast or more of Casey?" And they're like, "Casey." And I'm just like, "Well,
Well, I appreciate.
we'll
that.
see what." But that was one of my favorite moments on the podcast
that was
was
cool.
having Casey do that.
I like
was,
that.
I appreciate it.
It was different. We had talked about it for a long time, never did it. We finally did it, and I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Had a lot of Casey. I know you've got a couple of favorite episodes in mind. I know specifically one that just kind of rocked your world and still does sometimes.
Yeah, no, that one about that when we talked about resurrection and reckoning, you know what I mean?
Was that like
that
the
was like our
first
first
episode?
episode.
of this season, right?
Yeah,
That was a
yeah.
good one,
That was a
man.
really
Good
good one,
episode,
and
yeah.
it was very encouraging. And even though I've slipped up since then
powerful.
or whatever, it's just like it's still applicable. That freedom's still there. That
Yeah.
you know what I mean. And yeah, that was I went back and listened to that episode probably 3 times.
Yeah.
You know, and I know the one with Sam McVeigh that we just did recently was mind-boggling
Yeah,
as
that
well.
was good.
That was really good.
Man, we've had a good season.
Yeah.
So why are we stopping?
Why are we stopping? Well, we kind of approached Casey on this and just pretty much said, "Hey, man, here's what we're feeling." I approached Jason, and then Jason was like, "Well, let's take it to Casey and see what Casey says." So I'll tell you this story. Basically, I was made aware that there is a group of, and when I say group, it's not a group that gets together. There's individuals who do not know one another, but had conversations with someone who basically are pastors in our city who are not happy with some of the things that we've talked about.
Nobody told me about that.
Yeah. Well, now you know. You're learning about it live. So there was a group of pastors that, just had some frustrations.
So it's not like a
lot of
group.
stuff.
It's not like a group of pastors got together
No,
and said,
no,
"Hey,
no.
what's
They're-
going on?"
they're separate
it was
individuals.
Separate people in conversation over time had said, "Hey, do you know about those salty dog guys? Like, do you know them?"
Yeah. And so my buddy, that was kind of the guy that all of these questions were being asked to, he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I just want you to know this, and I'm not expecting you to do anything about it, but you should be aware of this." And so I went, okay. And I had a couple immediate reactions. Number one, my first reaction was, why are they upset? You know, and it come to find out it was a couple things. They didn't know if
This isn't why we ended it, by the way.
No.
You're telling
This
a
is not
story.
it. I'm going to get to it.
Okay.
They're tied together because this eventually led me to pray and ask God, do we need to end this? But in this, basically they thought, well, these guys hate church planners and they hate the church, and that's why they're doing what they're doing, saying what they're saying. And then there's some people that felt personally attacked. So that was the whole thing. And in hearing this, I stopped and I was like, all right, God, do we need to stop this? Do we need to not keep going on? Am I in the wrong? Is there anything that I've said? I even reached out to some guys, tried to have some conversations, did not get back with me. I've had to sort through that.
So they'll say it to other people that they won't have a conversation with you.
Man, I can't tell you. I can't. That's where my
Well, that
mind
seems
goes.
about right.
That's where my mind
Seems about
goes.
right.
But you know what? I don't know if I would want to talk to me either. So I'm not gonna.
So
I'm not gonna throw them completely under the bus.
We'll just talk about them when they're not around us because I don't want to talk to them in general.
Maybe.
And then when you reach out to actually have that conversation to say, why don't you have that conversation? And they didn't reach back.
They did not.
Okay.
No, did not happen.
I'm just trying to get the full picture here.
That's the full picture.
Okay.
So in doing
Sorry.
this and in praying, the phrase that I felt like I heard from God was, you need a season where no one hears your voice. Like, you need a season of insignificance. It was what he said to me. I'm not saying he's telling this to everybody. At the time, it was like, basically God, like, hey, you need a season where you're not talking anymore, and you're just going to be. And so I took that and I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? So then I talked to Jason about it, and Jason said that phrase kind of, I think, resonated with you.
Which phrase?
Really resonated.
Really stirred something within
Just
me.
I want to echo.
No,
that.
just the phrase of like, you need a season where your voice isn't heard.
Yeah. Well, mine was a little more dramatic, but so we did that episode 2 weeks ago with Jared. But then we had like this weird funky thing happen during. Do you remember that? We
Yeah.
just had like this weird feeling. It was like just this odd feeling. I couldn't really tell what it was, but it made me think. And so like after I left, I was kind of like, what was going on there? I was like, is the Lord like, is he telling us just like we need to be done? And we've
Yeah.
joked all season about
This is the last
this is the
episode.
last episode. Was that last episode? We've joked about that, but I was really wondering, like, we haven't had topics, that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of been planted in my brain. Like, I wonder if
Well,
this
even at
thing's
the beginning of the season, I
if
don't
it's
know if you
coming to
guys
an
remember
end.
when we all got together, we'd even asked the question, should we do this? Should we jump into season 5?
Yeah,
And I think-
right. So long story short, I was at home and I had felt like it was almost like the Lord gave me this vision of myself. And as I saw myself talking, I saw like an arrogant prick that I had the thought, I wish that guy would just shut up.
Like looking at yourself.
Looking at myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, is that how people view me? And I'm not saying that's how people view me, but it was like,
But maybe.
it was
Apparently
just
it
this,
is.
Right.
It was just this image of like, I've felt like I've known it all. Like, and that's the last thing. Like, I have opinions
Yeah.
and I have beliefs and I've studied and I can, you can ask me how I feel about a topic and I'll tell you how I feel about a topic. And sometimes I get passionate about it, but I think there was just enough pride mixed into that. Like, I had this thought one
Yeah.
day separately, how I think that I'm right about a lot of things. And so I'm always looking around and pointing out the wrong about people and their beliefs. And then I just had the verse that says knowledge puffs up. It's like the more we think we know, the more proud we are of what we think we know. And it's pride.
Yeah.
And then scripture talks about how, the Lord, he opposes the proud. And I'm like, what the heck? So just all these thoughts. And I kind of had the same thought. I'm like, you know what? I could be done and be fine. That's the phrase I've been using. I could be done and be fine. Like, if we need to shut it down and I need to not give my opinion on certain things, if I've been going about the wrong way, if there's been any arrogance mixed in with it, I don't know that that's actually really accomplished anything. And so I guess my main question for people is, did anybody learn anything? Did anybody really get anything? And I know we have emails.
Yeah.
We probably had a good 25, 30 emails over the course of the show's life of people saying, hey, I'm listening from here. I'm listening from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
A
People
lot
out of the
people
country,
overseas,
man.
Netherlands,
Yeah.
Puerto Rico, like,
Yep.
people are just like, hey, we're listening. And it's been really good. I mean, Instagram messages, hey, really found the show. Really appreciate what you guys are talking about, that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I just, seasons, right?
Yeah.
Seasons.
Yeah. And for me, when you guys asked me about that, because I remember Jason called me and talked about it, man. And I think, if I'm being very honest, I've come to a place in my faith, like personally, dude, where everything really got shook, and I don't even know necessarily what I believe concerning, our walk and doctrine and all these things, all the verses, all the stuff,
Yeah.
man. And it's like, but when all that, when you get real shook, dude,
We just talked about this last episode.
yeah, when you
we
get
did.
real shook, a lot of stuff falls off. And for me, I think I'm closer to him now than I've ever been, only in the sense that I've lost so much of what I've lost people in my life. I've lost, I've lost my thought processes. I've lost, what I thought I know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's almost like coming to a place where it was just like, and I've been struggling real bad with my mental health lately too. And so I had to get some stuff done with that. And I just didn't feel, I was like, man, like, I don't even want to. So it was okay with me, when you guys asked me, because I was like, man, I just don't want to. I don't.
You
think,
got a
I
lot
don't
of
think I should
bigger
even
things
be
going on.
It was
talking
it
to
was
people.
well with your
you know
soul.
what I mean? I mean, it ain't well with my soul right now. You know what I mean? But I mean, this is fine because, again, it was just like I've been struggling so hard with my mental health and everything, and just being. I don't even know anymore. Like I know one thing, right? That's Christ crucified. That's about it, man.
Yeah.
And everything else is just kind of gone. Like, about life, about relationship, about, the church, about the community, about God himself, man. It's just like, dude, all of that stuff gets stripped away when you get shook. And, so that's just kind of where I'm at,
Yeah, and that's again, that's what we kind of talked about last or two weeks ago, last episode, excuse me. Just this idea that, like Christopher was talking about it, that you can go to church, you can read your Bible, you can pray, you can volunteer, you can go on the mission trips, you can do all the things, and you can get caught in that culture. And let me just drop this on you. I've often said it's easier to disciple people to Christian activities than it is to the person of Christ. Right? We can get people plugged into Christian activities.
Yeah.
Casey's led worship. He's helped plan a church.
He's called down
we've
rain
done
in
ministry. He's
India,
called down rain in India, like he's done all these things. But when this situation in life hits him and wrecks him, again, a lot of that stuff falls off. And what is he really left with?
Yeah.
And you're left with your experience of who the Father has been to you during these times.
Correct.
And that's all that stands.
Yeah. And even then too, like, again, figuring out, and I've said this before, which is, through all of this, he hasn't showed me who he is. He showed me who he isn't, and that's a tough pill to swallow, because you want him to be what he said he's going to be. You know what I mean? What he says in the word, man. And sometimes when that doesn't add up, you're like, well, how can that? I can't reconcile certain
leaves
things.
you with more questions.
Yeah, it does. But I think, again, that's a good place to be, because it's like I have literally come to the place where I was like, dude, I'm not doing it anymore. Not saying, oh, I don't believe in God anymore, but I'm not doing, just these, like this mask even of Christianity that we can construct. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't bear any power, man. And I just like, you know what, man? Like, whatever you want to do, I don't give a damn anymore. You know what I mean? And dude, my mom talked to me about this earlier today, because she was just talking about, trying to encourage me about the promise and stuff like that. But, what we're supposed to do in the meantime. And I said, you know what? The only thing that matters is loving other people. And
Bro,
that's
you
it.
and me had a conversation about.
We were just
I feel
talking
like we were
about
talking
that.
about that a couple days ago.
So what else do all my beliefs matter if I'm not loving? Because they don't. You know what I mean? And now I'm just trying to love the people around me, man. I still.
Bro.
So the things that fell off, you know what I mean? Again, lost my wife, lost all sorts of stuff, man. But it's like those things that remain, the few friends that have remained to me, and I'm not talking about acquaintances who have like checked in on me every 6 months and want to call me a friend. You know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about, the few people that I have in my life, my family, you guys, my son, the trees, and that's it.
The Lord.
That's it. Those are the only things that withstood the shaking. And so I have to look at that and say, well, everything else wasn't to him. You know what I mean?
I feel like this is important to say, and I was just like, oh, we're just gonna get in and get out, but I really have something to leave, and it really is this idea of loving people. Like, what can we do except love? Jesus, he didn't come to condemn, right? He caught a woman in sin. He says, I don't condemn you. Go live your life of sin. But like, I don't condemn you. He loved her. He gave her what she needed. And so regardless of the arguments that we have about theology and how we adamantly disagree with some people's beliefs, specifically those who are like hyper freaking religious, like I'm the authority on all things God,
Dude,
blah,
straight
blah, blah.
up, I'll just say,
like,
I disagree with a lot of the church, man.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We
Just
disagree
straight
with
up.
it.
Sorry.
But here, the idea is like, what do we do but love? Love covers a multitude of sins. And so the majority, hear me now, specifically on like Christianity online, When you start talking about people that are posting and then commenting, and there's comment wars and there's theology wars online, so much of Christianity is spending their time, and I think this is probably what has happened with this podcast, is we put so much time and energy and effort into proving who's right and who's wrong.
Yep.
We've forgotten how we're supposed to react to people when they're wrong, right? This is Jesus. The Pharisees were like, this woman should be stoned. Like, we found her in sin. She is guilty.
Yeah.
How should we respond to her? And Jesus says, love and grace.
Oh, I thought we were supposed to just hand out justice and, do it by the law. I thought that's what we were supposed to do.
So the idea is not, is this wrong? Is that wrong? Is this right? Is this wrong? Is this wrong? Is this a sin? Is that a sin? Is this a sin? Is that a sin?
You missed the whole point.
We've missed it. Yeah. The idea isn't whether or not we need to be proving biblically what's right or wrong. That's eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay, so let's just say they're wrong. How do you react to them? That's the true question.
Is anyone ever saying that they're wrong?
Do you react in love?
Because here's let me go up. Yes to all of that. And you're getting some hand clap emojis in the chat, but really at the end of the day, and you know what ends up happening when you try to win someone over to your beliefs, your newest realization.
You win them to you and not to the Lord.
Or you just you don't love them. I don't feel like your heart, at least when I'm in an argument and I'm trying to win someone over, my mind and my thoughts are not centered around love.
Yeah, no kidding.
They're centered around like, I cannot believe you believe this, and it starts to build anger with me. Sometimes Lara, in the past, she's been able to see me looking at my phone, and she can apparently see something on my face that with some facial expression where she has said, just put it down, don't even respond, and been right, knowing that like I'm about to get heated typing something up. Even just here in the last couple weeks, I mean, I see people post stupid ass shit all the time that I'm just like, what? And I cannot tell you how many times just this last week I'm sorry, kids watching, dang it. Even this last week that
you guys are going ham.
I know, I'm sorry.
On the language.
I'm sorry, guys. To where I've wanted to post stuff and just walked away because it's just like, it's not worth it. It's not worth me getting all upset. It's not worth, I'm not going to win them over. And this is the other biggest thing that I know we've talked about. We can't win anyone over.
Yeah.
Like, we can't change anyone's minds. There's no one that in 2015 could have looked at me and talked about half of the stuff that we talked about or some of the things we've talked about. And I would have looked at that and gone, nah, I don't want any part of that. No one could have convinced me of these things. It's like you get to a place in your journey where you start walking and you're just on this road and you're going to end up places that you never thought you would end up.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I don't know, man.
We can't. And that was I forgot where I was going with that.
No,
where I
go
was
for it.
going with that was we've also realized like we can't change people's minds. And a lot of the people who we have these hypothetical conversations and hypothetical arguments with, and these like hypothetical viewpoints that represent real viewpoints. Like on the podcast,
right.
We have these like arguments that there's no one there. Those people aren't listening to the podcast.
That's true.
Apparently they are.
Well, I don't know
Well,
that
not
any
anymore.
of those were very regular. I think some of those were one-offs, like they caught an episode, they caught a clip, they caught this. I don't know that any of those people were real, regular listeners.
So-
but even then, if they hear that, it didn't spur them to go, let me listen to what these guys are saying.
You know, that's kind of...
And so I just know, like, I am done wasting my time and giving into anger and giving into all of these negative emotions.
I don't know, man. I don't think, because for me, man, I know that we've had some really profound conversations.
Oh, we have.
You know what I mean? And for me, that changed. And again, from where I started to where I'm now, you know what I mean? Like, I guess, being a little bit more free, but those conversations that we've had, like have really, some of that stuff really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that when you say things that go against the culture, okay, like you get crucified, no matter what it is, you know what I mean? And people get upset about it because, I mean, they don't, I've had conversations with people, even inside my family, where I think outside of the box on some certain things, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's just my grandma thought my soul wasn't saved. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I understand that because, you know, it is what it is. But I'm just saying
But
sometimes
is there anything that you could say to any of those people or anyone else that would change their mind?
no, I mean,
Nah.
but then again, I don't think my goal has ever been to change the mind of anybody or
Yeah.
change the church. I just
For
want to
sure.
have these conversations because I know for me, I was really sick of feeling like I'm the only one that thinks about or wants to ask those types of questions.
Yeah.
You know, and it's never for me it's been a personal journey for me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? More than anything.
I would agree. I would agree with that from the outside looking in.
I just enjoyed
It has not been that for me.
the conversations that we've had, and I enjoyed putting those conversations out there for people to join in on.
Yeah.
You know, and it's never been hatred. It's never been let's single people out.
Yeah.
Pastors, if you're listening and you're offended, man, you need to chill for real, because we're not here to offend people. We're just having a conversation. We're having fun. We're doing what we do, man. This is
Right.
what it is. Whenever we're not off air, or whenever we're off air too, and so
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
lot of those conversations has been really profound. You know
It's
what I mean? And
true,
really
and,
healthy.
and the podcast really has been a peek into a sliver of the amount of conversations that we've had.
Dude, the amount of conversations, you know, I feel like Jason's the middleman. I feel like you and him have really deep and profound conversations, and him and I have, but these are representative of not just conversations that happen between us, but there are lots and lots and lots and lots of people in the world having similar conversations.
that's why
and
they
they don't
connected
think
with it.
anyone else is having those. And that has been one of my favorite things about the podcast, because people have looked me in my eye and said, Chris, why do you have this? Why do you talk about these things? It just seems like you're trying to say terrible things about the church. You're trying to do this. And it's like, listen, I understand that I'm going to be perceived a certain way, but it's worth it for me to know that my online persona is this, because there are other people that are watching going, I know who I can talk to about this. And I have had some people that reached out to me that said, hey, you're the only person, or you guys are the only people that I've heard in my sphere of influence, not to say that they don't exist, but that are having these kinds of conversations. I'm processing these things too. It's almost like we marked ourselves to basically say, hey, we're open to having these conversations if you want to. And so it's been so cool to even be known, like to be known as that to some people, to know that they can come and have a safe conversation around
About
a fire
anything.
pit. Right. In
About
an
anything.
email, in a Facebook message, in an
Yeah.
Instagram message. Like, we have been to those people what they needed during that season.
Do
and that was worth it.
We even had two gentlemen join us on our trip that we'd never even met before in our life.
Went
man.
to hike a mountain with you
Yeah,
guys.
we like, hey, we put it out there, and they
super
hit us
cool.
up. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a cool
That
experience too.
Jesse and what's his name?
Dennis, they passed out.
Jesse and Dennis, man. So let me say just a couple things here. Number one, Casey was like, hey, if you're a pastor and you're getting offended, you need to chill out. And Andrew Jensen goes, I bet they all just chilled out. How many pastors at home just
They're
went,
like,
they're just like, oh, just, yeah, like how many people do we actually change? Like he just told me to chill out. I'm going to listen to him. I'm just going to chill out.
that Casey fella.
guys, he's got
That
something
Casey
going
guy.
on.
Profound.
He's
Chill
got nothing.
out.
He's got nothing going on. He's got everything
That
going on.
shaggy-haired vapor on that podcast is really just hitting my soul right now. So that was hilarious. Here's Ward said something I want to address. This.
Emily
He
would
goes,
say that I smell like trees too. So
"Oh my
you can
gosh."
put
Ward-
that into your.
So Ward goes, I
Years.
think you guys are right about treating people in love. I also see how Jesus treated the religious leaders that were wrong. It's a tough balance.
It is.
I think the moments on the show where I've gotten the most pissed is when I am hypothetically challenging a religious mindset.
Yes.
And so
Same.
that
But I think
we didn't start the podcast. Well, number one, we didn't start the podcast so that it would become what it did today. It has evolved. We started the podcast to have conversations with pastors and people in ministry about ministry and Christianity and all this stuff.
And that was a thing until. Oh, go ahead.
Well,
Finish.
no, it's fine. And so what ended up happening is just getting more and more disgruntled with what was being revealed to me as this religious mindset, and
a
I'll even
spirit.
say religious spirit.
Yeah.
And so what the religious spirit to me means, it's this ideology, this understanding of Christianity that really robs people of true freedom in Christ. It's hindering rather than freeing.
it's heaping burdens on
It's
people.
heaping burdens on people. It's putting them in a yoke of bondage. And so Scripture says, and Jesus came to set the captive free, right? To give us an easy burden, an easy yoke. And so the biggest thing that has pissed me off over the course of the years is seeing religious mindsets exist, hold people down so that they don't function in their true identity of who they are in Christ or the truth about who they are in Christ. And so I've attacked that religious mentality, but it's not been a person.
Yeah.
It's been an idea. It's been an idea. So I appreciate Ward bringing that up. Somebody also said, Jesus chased people with the whip and he flipped tables. Yeah, there was a part of religion that truly pissed him off. And so Pam says, I'm personally sad because this seems like the only safe place to talk about things we're all thinking. We can't ask the religious people these questions. The podcast will be deeply missed. And so it's that same idea. There's this religion that exists. And when I say religion, I mean Christianity is a religion, but it's a relationship. It's a religious world religion, Christianity, Hinduism, whatever. But this religious mentality, again, that is burdening people and robbing them of true freedom in Christ.
Oh, totally.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Man, gosh. The times that I've lost my chill on this podcast have been at those very same moments.
Same
challenging the religious mindsets. And if we ever did come across as hating the church or hating pastors, let me clear the record now on this last episode. I don't hate the church. I'll look at the camera. I don't hate the church. I don't hate pastors. I don't wish church plants wouldn't come to our city. Are you really? You should.
I think so.
I don't wish that church plants in our city would fail. I don't want current church plants that are here to fail. I don't wish bad. I don't want your ministry to fall apart. I don't want any of those things. Quite honestly, the only thing that I want for people is to coming to a real relationship with Jesus that's free of a lot of the religious things that have been placed on people. I'm trying to censor the words that I'm choosing right now because there are children watching.
Yeah, y'all need a dictionary, dude.
Like, I know. we just go this other way. But anyways, like that's not the case. I love pastors. I love the church. I actually have a really soft spot for pastors in the sense that I look at what they're doing and the load that they carry, and I feel really bad for them. And I feel really bad that I know what comes after your service, after you preach. I'm saying this like they're listening. How you feel like you just did a terrible job and you're counting all the people that weren't there and you feel like a failure because the reflection of the numbers that are there. Like that is a thing. That is a mindset that exists. And so if anything, I deeply desire freedom in ministry for pastors, like on a whole new level that the current system does not allow you to live in. Like, dude, I see it. And even though I'm not in the game anymore and I'm not there on Sundays all the time, you don't have to look far to see it exist on Facebook and to see people giving more of themselves to the ministry than to their families, to the people that they love, to their kids, to their wives, to their husbands, any of that stuff. And so I deeply desire freedom for those people. I deeply desire the people that they're leading to not come under any sort of religious yokes that they're putting on them. Like that's what gets me heated up when we start getting into conversations as my pastor said this, he said that, she said this, they told me to do this, they used this scripture to justify that. Like there ain't nothing that will get me hotter than that. And so if you've witnessed anything that you've thought I've hated the church or hate pastors, like it's not that. I hate when people try to leverage what their perception of the truth is and then make it truth for everyone. Because let me tell you this, ain't nobody on this earth know the truth. No one. Literally, anyone who's watching now, we all have different interpretations of the Bible. We can, no one knows. Like that, I'll scream that from the rooftop. You don't know. And the quicker that anyone in leadership or anyone not in leadership can accept that, the better off in your faith that you'll be.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I
guess
thought you were
so.
going to drop the mic after that. There it is.
I mean,
oh my God.
that's what I get. I mean, you can clearly tell I got worked up over that. Like, that's what upsets me. Those are the kinds of things. I don't want them to fail. I really don't.
Yeah.
I want people to see freedom in the church. I want them to see freedom, and find what the church says that they can bring people, which is not like streaks in their Bible or like Bible studies or any of that. I mean, it's an encounter with the Father. It's an introduction. It's a handoff.
And I think that you know, I'm right there with you, but you know, it's strange because I have a different perspective because I've never been a pastor like you guys have. You know what I mean? And so it's always been interesting to me to look on the outside and listen to what you guys, you know, talk about, because I feel so far removed from that arena, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
But for me, you know what I mean, if we're just leaving it all out there for our last episode, I think, man, I think that I would say my heart is for, you know, the drug addict, the alcoholic, you know, people with mental health issues, these, you know, the person that's out there that does good for a little bit, but then stumbles, or, you know, and lives with guilt and shame
Right.
and remorse and hatred of themselves, you know what I mean? Who've had people leave them, who've been down to the bottom of it,
abandoned.
you know what I mean? Who've been to the bottom of it, man. I think that those people can be used by God in a very huge, massive way, you know what I mean? And so I've always wanted to encourage those kind of people and tell you, you know, like I'm there with you, man. We're all, you know, people that have that kind of propensity towards that kind of quote unquote sin, you know what I mean? You know, I'm there with you, man. I've walked that road, and I just want to see freedom, not only for myself, you know what I mean, but for people that are struggling with that continue to struggle with it, man. Just because you stumble, when you just keep walking the journey, that's it. You don't start over. It's not, everything's not falling down around you. You pick up and you keep walking,
Yeah,
because
it's
eventually you're going to get there,
so
you know what I
important.
mean? And eventually I'm going to get there. You know,
Yeah.
and so I just wanted to encourage people, because it's very easy for them to get discouraged, you know what I mean, and feel like nobody understands or nobody cares, you know what I mean, or people have a perception of people who have struggled with addiction and label them literally the scum of the earth, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and think that you're better than those people, you know what I mean, and I want those people to know that, you know, that I have a heart for you, man, and I've been there. I've been at the very, very bottom, man, and I just want you to know, and it's always been like that. I've always wanted anybody that was listening to know that I had their back, even though if I've never even met you, I've got your back.
you're in their
You know,
corner.
I'm with you. You know what I mean? Because it's hard being a Christian and being an addict at the same time, bro. You know what I mean? It's hard being an alcoholic and an addict at the same time. You know what I mean? It's hard living in duality when you want so hard to be free. You want so bad to be free, and yet that freedom's not attained. You know what I mean? It's so hard to walk that walk. It's so hard to walk and have people leave you. You know what I mean? You know, reject you because of that.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm there with you, man. I'm certainly there with you. And so if this is the last episode and anybody is struggling with that, man, I'm just telling you, I got your back completely, 100%, 110%.
You know, Casey,
and I know what that feels like.
a lot of dude, you're a favorite on the podcast, man. I mean, you know, that season, I don't think you were around very much in season 4, but you know, almost, I feel like a lot of the quotes that people would share, that they'd be like, man, this was a mic drop moment, or it was this episode and that episode. A lot of that was episodes where you kind of took the lead, quotes that you would say that really rocked people. And so, man, I know you brought a lot to this podcast.
Cast
a lot.
pods all day for the glory.
All day for the glory, dude. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
Dropping them rosy cheeks on people.
Yeah, and it's
Blessing 'em.
and well, it ain't because I have it figured out. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so that in and of itself, we've all made that statement tonight that we don't have it all figured out. And I think that one of the most harmful things in the church are people who act like they have it all figured out.
Yeah, that's the worst, man.
And I mean,
I'm so right. You know what I mean? That you're saying you're so wrong. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's unreal.
I know there are healthy Christians. Like, I know there are people who are in healthy relationship with Jesus. But I think to put off this persona of I have it all figured out, it doesn't show a lot of empathy or sympathy for those who are saying, I don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to be okay with the idea that not everybody has it figured out. And, you know, one of the things that I've learned about myself over time, and I just think the older you get, whatever, I'm 39, I'm not even that old, but I've walked the earth for 39 years, or 38, because I learned to walk when I was 1. Technicalities. So, you know, I've learned that, and Casey, we talked about this, coming to terms with the depth of your brokenness,
Yeah.
Yep.
but then realizing that what you thought was the depth of your brokenness actually went deeper than that.
Yeah.
And then it goes deeper,
Deeper
and then
still.
it goes
Oh,
deeper
yeah.
still, and then you're just like, holy crap, I'm jacked, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am 100% jacked. But it's coming to that place again that makes you realize, like, man, I need a savior, right? I need the Lord. I need the good news.
Yeah.
I need the good news that God is reconciling the world to himself, not counting his sins against him. That's the gospel.
Mm.
You see the depth of your sin. The good news is God's reconciling you to him and not counting those against you. That's good freaking news. So when I know the depth of my brokenness and I recognize that brokenness in others, my only response is I don't blame them. I do not blame them for doing that. I do not blame them for acting that way. I don't blame them for lashing out. I don't blame them for leaving. I don't blame them. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. I know exactly why you did that. And that's empathy, right? And that's, I mean, what in Hebrews it talks about Jesus as a high priest being able to sympathize with those who have sinned because he has been faced with and tempted by everything that we've been tempted by and faced with. And so he's able to empathize with the weakness, it says.
Yeah, and I think when you have static points, you know what I mean. Like you can't empathize with people. I wrote a lyric recently, which is we only take sides when definitive lines separate and breed the hate that would cause the divide. Right? We only have to take sides if there's a line that's drawn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
And a lot of times we're drawing those lines.
We're drawing.
Like we have these points that we want to make, and these things. It dehumanizes people.
It absolutely does.
It's difficult. So Jason, you said something a little while ago about like not blaming people, and something along the lines of like being patient with people. Essentially,
Yeah.
That's another reason why I think I really feel led to in this season is because I haven't been very patient with the people that I'm frustrated with.
Right.
Everyone has their own growth journey, and this isn't to say that they're going to end up where I am because I'm on the right track, but I really do think that people only make decisions to change when the Lord leads them to them, and even then, just because they decide to start embarking down that road of change, it isn't perfect. It's filled with stumblings and trippings and walking forward a few paces and then maybe veering on. Like, no one does it perfectly. So I'm not saying that I've arrived at this place or I have it all figured out, because I don't. But I'm hoping, my deep hope is that pastors, leaders, teachers, people who just follow Jesus, who don't have a title, that they would go wherever God is leading them. And if they're on whatever road they're on, that's probably like what the stereotypical walk with Christ looks like, even if they're on staff somewhere. You look at someone else's walk who may be similar to ours and you think that's not right, that's the wrong thing, until you go through something that shakes your world so much, that shakes everything up in you, that causes you to question the system that you're in. And then, like, I'm trying to be patient and realize that those people haven't had that shaking moment yet. And even when they do have that shaking moment, they may not go down the same path that I'm down in terms of thought.
Yeah.
And so I think it will be very helpful for my mental health, for my walk, for my heart in loving people, in reconciling relationships with pastors in our city to end this, close this chapter.
And it is a closing of a chapter for sure. Like I'd said to you a couple of different times, and I just said, man, I'm sick and tired of trying to convince people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm tired of arguing scripture. I'm just tired of it. Like what does it do? What does it really accomplish? And I mean, I know most of the podcast was that, but I'm tired of it. And just speaking of being tired, like, bro, I'm tired in life right now. Like, I'm in a rough season in life, just mentally, having one less thing on my plate is probably going to go a really long way.
Yeah.
And, we try to be healthy and take times off and have seasons for this and all that stuff. And it's been really good. But I just, I'm looking at a lot of different things in my life right now, and I'm saying I could be done with that and be okay.
Yeah.
And that's a healthy thing for me to be able to say, I could not do that and be just fine. I could not do that and be just fine.
Yeah.
And for a long time, the Salty Dogs was like something that I love doing. I still love it. I'm enjoying myself right now,
You know-
obviously, but you know, it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I just think the Lord has something in store. Like there's going to be some healing. There's going to be less anxiety, less work. I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There will be less of it, but it will be good. And so he knows best. And he says, hey, shut it down. And we're like, I guess we've said what we needed to say. And
I mean, that, and so the question was, why are we ending this? Because we feel like God is leading us to end this.
Yeah.
It's not because pastors got upset.
Right.
Although-
Definitely not.
No,
You know what? I might do 2 or 3 more episodes just because of that right there.
It's because we feel like God's telling us to shut. Anyone
Yeah.
else can tell me to shut up, and I'm gonna keep going. But when God, I really feel like He's telling me to shut up, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna shut up.
yeah,
I
that's
recently read a book
good.
on like these spiritual practices. One of them was graceful transition and allowing yourself the gift of transitioning and not just going to something else immediately.
Yeah.
And so, Jason, I know I had an idea for another podcast because Casey, while you had said like this was never about changing things for me, that was what it was about. Like my hope, my deepest hope was like, man, maybe we can help be this, this thing that someone comes across that's in ministry that helps lead them down this path where they start change. Like that was always the hope. That was always the desire. And since then I've learned like I can't change anyone's mind.
I can't
There's
do a
nothing
damn
I can
thing
do.
about it, man.
I can't change anyone's mind. And so even then it was like I had all these ideas that I was talking to Jason
Yeah.
about for this new podcast that would not be about being salty, but would be about,
Being sugary.
being sugary, being the
Sugar
spice,
cats.
just
Just
spice
coated
of the
in
word.
sugar. Sugar cats.
No, someone was joking about starting the Sweet Kittens podcast.
The Sweet Kittens
Sweet
podcast.
kittens.
So that's next.
And so, anyways, I had this idea for that, and then God's just like, no, you need to allow yourself to transition. You need to. And so, in this, when God said no to that, one of the things that because you remember I came back and I was like, I don't know if we should do this. I don't know if we should end it. Like after we had already said we're going to end it. So I had this fear once we weren't going to do that podcast because God said, nope, you just need to stop for indefinitely until, I give you the green light, if he ever does, is because I literally felt like I was losing any sort of influence or outlet that I had to have a voice and to say things that would influence others. And so I had to wrestle with that. Like I don't stand in a pulpit and preach, like I don't do that. I don't have these moments in my life where I can be influential in other people's lives. And so there was a moment where I was really having to let this go and realizing like, man, I truly am embracing insignificance and letting go of the platform that I do have to potentially influence lives. And that's powerful. And I was reminded of Exodus. We get like a snippet of Moses' life. We have him fleeing the palace. And then how many years later do we catch back up with that dude again when he's tending flocks, Jethro's flocks, like years. And so there's this gap of insignificance. There's this desert journey. And I've talked about the desert before. And so it's almost like, I feel like the Lord's like, pack your bag. We're going in the desert. And guess what? It's insignificant. Like there's no significance in the desert, at least from a voice standpoint. So that was something I had to wrestle with.
No,
That's probably the last thing I got to say.
and that's good, and that's always kind of been my thought process because I moved to Wichita in 2010 to be a campus pastor and a church planter, and then I had a pulpit, for nearly 4 years. I stepped out of that for a little while, but then jumped right back into it, and it's like I've had these times where I've been in and out, in and out, in and out.
Yeah.
And so I had some time where I really didn't say much from the pulpit, but then we had the podcast. But then I did these like teaching classes, and that was really good. And then I taught at a conference, that was really good. And then it was like still the podcast, but I haven't actually had moments where I've truly been silent and not had any kind of platform to, I don't know. I know the Lord's going to be doing stuff in me, but earlier I was talking about I haven't been doing so well just in life, mental health, just tired, just busy. And I think the Lord really wants to bring me into a time of rest. And that means that some of these things are just going to have to the work needs to stop
Yeah.
for the rest to come. And so I think that's part of what this is going to be for me personally. But I want to share some of the comments that have been going on because they've been really good. So we've got Jenna, who says, "This has been a place for the Spirit to show me truth amongst so many other voices. You guys have been able to put words to my beliefs better than I know how." That's huge. I mean, that's really huge.
Man, that's encouraging.
Andrew says, "You guys have been the catalyst to countless important conversations about why the church does some of the things it does. These are all important. Thank you all. Thank you." Pam says, "And I will say it again, we can't get this realness at church. Maybe that's what the church needs to focus on more." Someone asked if we ever did a episode on hell.
Never did that.
We never did that.
It doesn't exist.
Episode done.
Pam says,
Just kidding.
Pam says, "Y'all been my life group. Now I got to find a new one." Yeah. So just, I mean, really nice words from everybody tonight. So
Appreciate
we
it.
appreciate that. And
Yep.
I mean, I kind of feel like I got it out, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only other thing that we need to talk about is our Patreon people.
So Patreon people.
First off,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you to every single person that has financially
Yeah.
backed
Oh man.
this,
Yeah.
that has allowed us to pay hosting fees,
Sure.
to pay for a website, to pay for upgrades to equipment. Like there's been some fat upgrades that have happened to equipment.
Yeah.
People that
So-
have made significant donations, like Michael Boatman.
Oh, yeah.
People dropping
Mike
fat
Boatman.
cash.
Shout out to Michael Boatman.
Classic Mike Boatman, man.
Classic Michael Boatman. Michael Boatman. That guy.
Keeping us afloat.
Yep.
Yeah, there's been a few. Our patrons have been truly amazing. And Ward said, "Oh hey,
Oh, hi.
Pam, she's been a patron. So if you've supported us financially, we appreciate you regardless. But
You are locked into those, and you signed a 10-year commitment. So
No, and let me just say this: like all of this gear. I mean, even Jared just built this table, and we're shutting the show down. But Salty Dogs podcast has always been a part of the Source Wichita's ministry, and the Source Wichita has a broadcast room where we've set up for live streaming, video recording, and podcast recording and editing. And so that still exists within this ministry, and there are people within our network who use this space
have other podcasts,
and have other
things.
podcasts and those kinds of things. So even if you've given to Salty Dogs, it has gone to help build the broadcast room.
Yeah.
And then that's been helping other podcasts and other ministries and other media productions. So again, thank you for that. We're going to shut the Patreon down.
Yeah, we had a conversation about should we keep going, and again, God said shut
we
it
just
all.
Shut it down.
Yeah.
So
So
I will have to figure out how to actually get that canceled. And I'm sure as we shut the page down, that'll stop the giving. And so if you feel for some reason you would like to continue to give to whatever ministry we're a part of, you can go to thesourcewichita.com and then you can just give to the ministry if you want to do that. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Not that we're saying, oh, we need it, but if you
classic
if
pastor.
you feel led to do that. So Sean Hamlin, tons of people feel just like you guys. Thank you for being a voice, leading people to think, to let their paradigms be shifted. It's all good.
I like that.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Patreon, I think personally, I would like to shut down the Instagram. I think maybe the Facebook can live, but I don't think there's really any reason to keep the Instagram alive. I shut down the Twitter. The website is still up, and we'll have to just consider how much longer we want to let that live. But the podcast will continue to live on iTunes and Spotify and all that stuff. We're gonna. I think we'll let that continue to live
Indefinitely.
indefinitely.
yeah,
I might find a
for sure.
cheaper alternative, or see if we
For
can find
hosting,
a free way to host it. But it'll continue to live. The Salty
dude.
Dogs email will live on saltydogs.podcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, keep emailing us.
And so, people are they're gonna keep listening. And as it
That's why we
continues,
need to keep it on Spotify and iTunes, man.
Yeah,
Be going
as-
to know
as
there's channels.
as
man. What are you
the
talking about?
content lives on, people will continue to listen.
They'll
and if
find
you-
that's the cool thing about podcasts, man, is that people find podcasts all the time that are no longer going, but they go back and they listen through the whole library.
Yeah, and I want to say just to anybody who ever prayed for me, you know what I mean, through this podcast, or prayed for any of us, or prayed for us in general, man, like huge thank you. You know what I mean? That you would even take the time out to pray specifically for possibly somebody that you don't even know. You know what I mean? And I know that, you know, that was huge to me, because I've received a lot of encouragement even when I was going through really dark times. Man, people have said some really encouraging things to me on this podcast, and so anytime, I mean, I just got to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You know what I mean? Thanks for sticking on for 4 years. You know, and you actually walked with that or through that with me. You know what I mean? And that's huge.
Here's something to consider. So the podcast is 4 years old, and it's the end of May, the weekend before Memorial Day weekend, which is graduation weekend. And so we're graduating, guys. 4 years, we did it. We made it.
Finally Christians.
We gave it the old college try.
The old 1, 2, 3, 4.
We're graduating into maturity, which Proverbs says, keeping our mouth shut.
Yeah,
Shutting your damn mouth
true.
is wise.
# mature disciple church. That's what we are.
Dude, the last episode, you said # Fearverse Church.
Fearverse.
Hi, welcome to our church.
Okay.
We use verses of fear to get you to do what we want you to do.
share
Fearversechurch.com.
Can I share one ridiculous thing?
Absolutely.
One ridiculous quote that this is the kind of stuff that I wore deeply.
Oh no.
No, it's funny. We'll see what you say, Casey. It's a Paul Washer quote.
Oh my gosh. Dude, so
Do you know
Yeah.
Paul Washer?
Do I know Paul Washer? Not personally, but
Do you know who he is?
yes.
So listen to what old P. Wash has to say.
About salty dogs?
No, about salty dags.
Paul
This
Washer,
is just
what do
Paul
you have-
Washer being Paul Washer.
I want to know what Paul Washer has to say about our last episode.
Oh my God.
He
Here's
said-
what Paul Washer has to say about you, audience. The moment when you take your first step through the gates of hell, the only thing you'll hear is all of creation standing to its feet and applauding and praising God because God has rid the earth of you. That's how not good you are.
Paul Washer would say that all of heaven is erupting in praise because the salty dogs have ended their blasphemous podcast.
Oh my
Paul Washer gets you.
My one regret on the show is that we didn't start every episode
With a Paul Washer quote?
with "Let's get ready to blaspheme."
Oh man. That was good. We did that last episode.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Ward Huey says, "Wowzers." Let me tell you about Paul Washer. So
What a guy.
I used to listen to Paul Washer
Me too.
sermons because they made me feel like crap, and I thought feeling like crap would make me change. They truly made me feel terrible.
Yeah.
And whether it was conviction or whatever it was, I thought, let me just tell you one thing. I used to think that I could fear myself out of sin,
Ooh.
that I could make myself scared or like disgusted or feel so bad that I was going to change. And none of that was ever motivation for change. None of that ever worked.
Or yeah,
know?
or fuel for lasting change. So
Well, hot
boys.
freaking dog, y'all. This is it.
That's it, man.
That's it.
Maybe we'll check in every now and then.
Nah, that's
Yeah.
it.
No, I was going to say.
Nah, that's it.
I was
She's
going to
done.
say.
Don't give them hope.
No, I'm going to give him hope.
Oh, we will drop the album whenever it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Probably in
absolutely.
the
as soon as Casey gets his crap together, we'll
Practicing on that tonight, man.
we'll drop the album in the feed. You guys will get all the songs. We'll just give them to you, right?
Sick,
And then we'll give people your PayPal. And They
yeah.
can shoot you some dough
for sure.
for blessing their ears with that angelic
You want to
voice.
PayPal me right now, man? You know, equipment and microphones. And I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. So
No, that's no. As soon as that's done, we're gonna put that on multiple avenues, and Jason's already volunteered to help us get that out there. So we'll definitely
Yeah.
drop it on the page.
If
man.
for some reason we do start any other endeavors, we'll drop them in the feed
We'll
and
put
let
'em
you
here,
guys know
yeah.
about it.
Yeah,
But yeah, it may be. We'll pop in. I mean, the feed will be. It'll be good for some time. So as soon as we feel like there's some sort of life update, or
And we're back in 2 weeks.
we'll have a reunion episode or something, and we'll say what's up. But I mean, this is an outlet for us.
yeah.
This is our audience. This is you guys are our
people,
Our
man.
people. You're the platform that we've had to be able to say things and share
we've
our
stood on
lives.
you
and-
for a long time.
I mean, honestly, haven't we? Like, I mean, we've shared our lives. We've shared our
Yeah.
hearts.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
I've poured out
the deepest parts of
passion
it.
and anger and joy,
Darkness.
and we've laughed till we've cried, and it's been good, man. It's been so good, y'all.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
You ready? How about on the count of 3, we all say the quote.
Salty dogs.
No, don't say it yet.
Out.
Don't. We're gonna count to
Don't
3.
do it.
All right.
Already did it. That was it. Bye, guys.
1, 2, 3.
Salty
Salty dogs.
dogs.
Salty dogs.
Out.
Out.